Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In today's video, I will be showing you how to draw and paint a beautiful vine of a very common tropical flower known as paperflowers, which I saw a lot of on the island of Majorca when I was there last month in July. So grab your favorite supplies and let's get started. As always, the materials I'll be using will be listed in the description box if you want to use the same supplies as me. Here's a quick view of the concept sketch I did as preparation for today. It's done in ballpoint pen and watercolor. I don't always do concept sketches. If anything, I might do just a quick thumbnail sketch, but this time I just needed to iron out my idea for a composition, how much space I'll need on the page, possible color scheme, etc., etc. So I'll be showing you how to draw a better finished version of this initial sketch. And I'll let you know what the exact colors are that I'm using as they appear in the video. Per usual, I'm first drawing the outline of the entire plant, essentially the line art, starting with the bracts you see me drawing here. The bracts are the bright colored parts of the plant. They're usually very colorful in hues of magenta, pink, purple, red, and orange. You can even find them in white or yellow. The bracts are not the actual flowers of the plant, but they are the most prominent part of the plant. The bracts are also the reason why the plant is called a paper flower, because the bracts are very thin and papery. Anyway, I'm starting with those by drawing very simple leaf-like shapes. To help give the drawing more depth, I'm drawing some of those leafy shapes with curves and bends to give the bracts a more three-dimensional look. I then start switching back and forth with drawing parts of the stems and leaves, and then more bracts. With the leaves, I'm also giving them curves and bends for that three-dimensional look that will help add beauty to the composition. I tell you this all the time, guys. Make sure you have variety in your line work so that your compositions overall do not end up looking flat and boring. Now I'm drawing the actual flowers of this plant. They are very small and appear in clusters of 3 at the very center of the bracts. They are tiny and unassuming, so you don't need to draw anything fancy. Just little stems with rudimentary flowers on top will do. In real life, they have a bit of a cone-like structure to them, but I drew mine like little cartoon flowers with a simple stem and 5 petals because it honestly makes no difference whatsoever on the overall look of the plant. Draw them however you like, guys. Now I'm starting my favorite part, the shading. If you've been following my channel for a minute, then you already know shading is my favorite. I spend a ridiculous amount of time on it every time, but I do usually keep it simple by using hairline strokes, referred to as such for their light and fine appearance. I like to start in one point and work my way out from that singular point, very similar to the way one goes about illustrating hair. It is also a type of stroke that one encounters a lot in calligraphy, which is very apropos since I rely heavily on fountain pens for my ink work. Before continuing with the shading, I'm just quickly adding more line details to the leaves in the form of veins. Okay, so as far as the shading is concerned, I'm keeping it really simple, like I said, by starting in the center of the bracts and working my way out lightly. I've told you this before in past videos, specific to flowers. When in doubt, start in the center of the flowers, or in this case the bracts, and keep your deeper shading concentrated in the center. Anything beyond that, we'll let the watercolor take care of it. I'm also just hatching the underside of the bracts, not cross hatching, just hatching, so parallel lines only. In one of the next flower videos, I'll show you different shading techniques that are just as effective as what I'm doing here and possibly even easier and quicker to execute, so keep an eye out for that. I'm shading the leaves only along the center veins, nothing else, and wherever there's a fold, I'm just shading the bottom portion of that fold. I'm keeping it all light. Now for some color. I'm using an Escoda size 4 travel brush. I believe it's from the Prado line. It's not too thirsty but not too dry either. It's a multitasker type of brush. I'm grabbing some quinacridone magenta from Core and I'm watering it down a lot. I'm creating a puddle in my palette is what I'm doing. With that color, I'm filling in the entirety of the bract. I'm not leaving any negative space. While that color is still damp, I'm then taking a bit of the color Sunset from Prima and I'm adding that color to the bottom portion of the bract, following my ink lines that I drew earlier. I'm then taking some clean water and softening up the edges of that color so that I don't end up with any harsh lines. Then I mix a little bit of dioxazine purple with quinacridone magenta, both from Core, to create a warm purple. And I'm adding that mix to the very bottom of the bract, while everything is still damp. Not wet, just damp. For the partially open bract on the right here, I'm changing it up just a bit because it's a bract that's just starting to open up, so it's going to have some green to it. I don't know if the bracts actually do this in real life, but it's a coloring that one sees often in nature for buds, so I'm doing it because one, it'll look really pretty this way, and two, I'm staying true to my style. So I'm taking the watered down quinacridone magenta from before, and again, I'm filling in the entire bract leaf. I'm darkening the bottom with some of that sunset color and using that color to mimic a bit of a vein structure while the whole thing is still damp. From the Prima set, I'm grabbing the colors Parrot and Palms and mixing them into that little purple mixture from before to darken it up quickly. I'm adding that color to the bottom of the bract leaf, then I'm grabbing just the Parrot color and adding it on top while it's still damp, letting the colors blend on the paper. And because cellulose paper doesn't stay wet for very long, I also add a bit of clean water to the edges to soften them and also to re-wet the bottom portion of the bract leaf. From there, I'm just playing with the colors using both Palms and Parrot interchangeably until the colors start to look the way I want them to, blending nicely into the pinks. Once that bract leaf was completely dry, I then repeated the entire process. I do a lot of color mixing in this video, so if you want to do this the way I'm doing it, I encourage you to practice your color mixing both in your palette and directly on paper because I'm doing both. Here I'm moving on to the smaller buds, repeating the same process, and I've zoomed in so that you can hopefully see it better. I've also switched to a smaller, less thirsty brush. This one is a Princeton Heritage round in size 2. It keeps a beautiful sharp point. Once I get the colors to look the way I want them to, I then grab some Island and Tiki from the Prima set mixed with a little bit of dioxazine purple from the Core set to create a very deep, cool green. And I'm using that color to paint veins on the bract buds. By the way, I'm also waiting until each bract leaf I paint is completely dry before working on the next. And I'm not just sitting around waiting for paint to dry. Whenever I need to let an area dry, I paint a different area and just work back and forth. Here I'm watering down more of that quinacridone magenta. I do this often in the video, so I think I'm not going to point it out every time. Once again, I'm adding some sunset over my ink lines, continuing to use them as a guide. Now I'm going to create a different dark mixture from before, so instead of mixing more of the warm purple, I've now grabbed some sunset and some tiki from Prima and mixed in a little bit of dioxazine purple from Core to create a rich dark mauve color instead, just to change things up a bit, playing with the colors. For this last brack leaf here, I mixed the same mauve color but with more magenta just to make it brighter. Then I re-added the purple to darken it up for the bottom of the bract leaf. Okay, now for the underside of the bract leaves, I'm using the watered down magenta and filling in the entire area. Then I'm grabbing my mauve mixture to darken up the bottom portion. So that was damp on damp. Now I'm going to switch it up again by using more of that mauve mixture first and adding it to the upper part of the underside and using a tiny bit of clean water to spread the color down in order to create a soft gradient. Then I'm adding a tiny bit of the mauve mixture to the upper part again to darken it some more. And for the last little underside area, I'm just filling it in completely with the mauve mixture and leaving it like that. Finally, I repeat that whole process with the remaining bracts. I've then darkened up my mauve mixture even more by adding more dioxazine purple, and I'm using that color to paint a variety of veins on all the bracts, making sure to build up the darker value in the center of the bracts. I give this treatment to all the bract leaves. Once I'm done with that, I grab a little bit of my leftover green mixture and add it to my leftover mauve mixture to create an even darker mix on the cooler side. And I'm using that new mix to create more defined veins on my bract buds. So far, it's a lot of information, guys, I know, but hopefully it makes sense. Moving on to the actual leaves of the plant, I've cleared away my green mixture from before and I'm starting over, grabbing some Parrot along with some Island this time, also from the Prima set, until I get a very light sort of hooker's green, and I'm watering that down a lot to use as another base wash again. Same as before, I'm filling in the entire leaf. I'm then grabbing a bit of Tiki, a bit of Island, and a tiny bit of Dioxazine Purple to create a very dark green. I didn't think it was dark enough, so I added a bit more Tiki and a bit more purple, and that looked better. Then I repeated the process on the smaller leaf. For this next part, I took a bit of time to mix just the right shade of brown mauve or chocolate mauve, which isn't all that easy to mix, but I really love using this type of color on branches and stems, not always, but often. So I do take the time to mix it myself to get it to look the way I want. So this mix ended up being the leftover quinacridone magenta with Tiki, a little bit of Island, and a little bit of Dioxazine Purple. If you already have a warm purple, then you'll only need 3 colors instead of 4 like I used here. I then used that color on the upper part of the stem I'm working on here, and then I grabbed some water, it can be dirty or clean, it doesn't matter, to lightly spread the color down to create a soft gradient. Then, to darken up the upper part of that stem, I added a tiny bit of Pitaya from Prima to a little bit of my chocolate mauve mixture. Then for the second stem, I'm just filling it in with the watered down chocolate mauve and darkening up the ends with the other small mixture. For some variation, I then mixed up a bit of the dark green again from earlier and used that to darken up the ends of the third stem. I then decided to start working on some more leaves using the same watered down green I used on the first leaf. I filled in the underside of this larger leaf here and used more of that dark green mixture for the bottom portion. And while I leave that to dry, I work on the rest of the main stem there with the color mixtures from before. I'm using all the color mixtures interchangeably. I'm not really committing to any one mixture for the stems, preferring to maintain the variety of colors. The differences are very subtle on the paper, so you don't have to do it my way if it's too much color mixing for you. Just do whatever you're comfortable with. It'll still look pretty either way. For the rest of the big leaf here and for all the other subsequent leaves, I'm treating them very much in the same manner I did the bracts, the only difference being the colors, the light green mixture and the dark green mixture. And then I just repeat the whole process on the rest of the leaves. I then mixed some more dark green, and again that mix is Island with some tiki and dioxazine purple, and I used that color to add veins to all the leaves. When I was done with all that, I then mixed a rich red color by using a color called Transparent Pyrrole Orange and Quinacridone Magenta, both from Core. If you don't have this particular orange from Core, you can of course use the Hibiscus orange that's in the Prima set. Just add a little bit of yellow to it, like the pineapple one in the set, to brighten it up just a bit. So with that red, I then painted the little flower filaments, leaving some blank areas on the tips of them. I darkened up that red a little bit more by adding more Quinacridone Magenta, and I added that just to the base of the flower filaments. It's barely noticeable though, but it's there. Then with some straight up parrot, nothing else, I painted the very center of the little flowers themselves and left it at that. Using my favorite white paint marker from Posca, I then redefined the little flower petals that got a little lost among all the watercolor to make them stand out a little bit more. And I also added a few more highlights on the flower filaments. I then added highlights to the leaves. But please note that off camera, I also went over those highlights with a little bit of watered down parrot to tone down the white, okay? Finally, using a Pilot Kakuno fountain pen with a fine nib, I wrote down the flower information and signed it. And that's it, all done. Here are some shaky close-ups for you. I really hope you enjoyed it and that you find it helpful. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for watching. It really helps out the channel when you watch the videos for any extended period of time, especially little channels like mine that are not monetized. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe, all that good stuff if you have not already done so. Thanks again, guys. Happy creating, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!